Whether you want to make a plain potato soup or a loaded potato soup, or if you want to add corn or peas or whatever you want to add to your potato soup, I'm going to show you how to make a delicious base that then you can customize to make it yours. Welcome to the Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. Today we're gonna make a simple potato soup. There's not much to it, really, except for a few ingredients that I add into my potato soup base so that I get tons of flavor in just a short cooking time. I'm gonna use the Ninja Foodi cold and hot blender for this because it is literally hands off, and I love that. However, you can do this on the stove. You can do this, a ton of different ways. You do it in the pressure cooker, it'd be perfectly fine. I will go over those instructions in the written post. But for this video, I'm gonna use the blender because I think it makes it just super easy. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is get an onion. Now I'm using sweet onions for this, but you could use a yellow onion, that would be perfectly fine. You could use a red onion, but your soup might be tinted a little pink. So I get the question a lot. When you say half of an onion, what do you mean? Well, usually in recipes, you don't need to worry so much about how much onion you put in. It's a personal preference. So don't sweat it. Use whatever you have and however much you want. But when I say use half of an onion, I'm talking about an onion about this size. So for this recipe, this would be a medium-sized onion, and I would call for a quarter of it. But if you have a little baby here, a little small onion, I would use half of it, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and use this one up, and I'm gonna use half of it in this recipe, or a quarter of a medium onion. We don't need to dice it, so I can't really say measure it into a cup, because you're not gonna dice it up, because the blender's gonna do that for us. So what I'm gonna do is just cut it from the root end to the stem end. Put half over there. And even my halves aren't perfect. It doesn't matter. You could use the big half, the little half, it makes no difference. I'm gonna peel this outer layer off, and usually the first layer of onion also comes off because it can be a little kind of tough. All right, then I'm just gonna chop it like this. And that's it, okay? I'm gonna add that to the blender with 2 tablespoons of butter. Then I'm gonna add 1 celery stalk, which I have something funny to tell you. So my whole life I've called it a celery stalk, which is 1 stalk, right? Well, apparently that is incorrect because the entire bunch, what I call bunch, is actually the stalk, and these are the ribs. Interesting, I learned that the other day. But I think mostly in the US we call it a stalk, so you know what I mean. Not the whole bunch, but just one of the ribs, 1 stalk. All right, we're gonna put that in, and that's chunked up too. You don't have to be too specific about that. Now, one of the additions that I put in is a piece of thick cut applewood smoked raw bacon. Now it's gonna cook, so don't worry about that. It's gonna cook in the time that the potatoes cook. But I put it in raw because I add it for flavor. Totally optional, but if you don't use this, you might want to increase your seasonings a little bit. We're only going to use salt and pepper in this recipe, so if you're not going to use the bacon for that smoky flavor, you might want to add in a little bit of thyme or something just to give it another type of flavor. But for this, because I'm going to turn my potato soup into a loaded potato soup, I'm going to use the bacon. And it is lovely in there, let me tell you. All right, next up, I have the ends from 2 green onions. So what I did, because I'm making loaded potato soup, like I said, I cut off the green part. That's what I want to use for my garnish, but I didn't want to throw these away. So I'm just gonna dump them in. Now, if you weren't using green onions for your garnish on your soup, don't worry about adding those in. It doesn't matter. You've already got onion in there. It'll be fine. Now we put the lid on. This is one of the few times that I use the saute function. I usually don't use it at all because I just don't, but this is one time that I do because I've got to peel the potatoes, and I figured let's get this stuff cooking and softened up. So we're gonna turn the blender on, hit the saute function. It'll start to chop it up a little bit finer. The heat will start to melt that butter. There we go. It also breaks up the bacon a little bit more so it cooks faster. So there we go. We're gonna let that go for, I think it's 5 minutes. Yeah, it's 5 minutes and maybe 30 seconds while I peel and cube up the potatoes. Then we will get the rest of our ingredients in, and I've got another surprise ingredient for you, and we will get our potato soup cooked up. So one of the reasons why I don't use the saute too much is because it throws the food up to the sides and then I have to go in and push it down. So I see all the steam building, but I can also see some butter over there. I'm gonna go ahead and open up the lid and just push it all down for the remaining part of the saute. Now with the lid off, you do not have to worry about it spinning, so the blades aren't gonna spin. So I just take this blender spatula and go against the sides. You could use the tamper, I think, or I could have used this. It would have been fine. Then once you put your lid back on, it's important to remember to hit the saute button again, or it's not gonna do anything. All right, now I'm gonna get these potatoes peeled up and cubed up. All right, that's it, time's up. So now we can go ahead and open up the blender and add in the rest of the ingredients. I'm gonna be using 2 cups of chicken stock, which I thought gave a really nice flavor, but you don't have to use chicken stock. You could use vegetable stock, especially if you wanna do this vegetarian and forget the bacon and use vegetable stock, it'll be fine. You could even use water, but if you use water, definitely increase your seasonings because I think it'll be a little bit bland. Then we're gonna add in the 1 pound of potato chunks, and I'm using russet potatoes, which is what I recommend for this recipe. And I just cut them into pretty large chunks because the blender is going to take care of all that fine chopping for us. My friend Amber tested this recipe for me, and she did not have a full pound of russet, so I think she used mostly russets, but maybe a 1/4 pound of Yukon Gold. She said it worked out fine. However, when I tried a half and half mixture of the Yukon Gold and russets, the soup had a very gummy texture to it. Was not happy with it. So that's why I recommend using the russet potatoes. So if you have those, use those, and I think you'll have a better texture. Oops, I'm putting the lid on before I'm done adding ingredients. That's what I get. All right, so the next secret ingredient is roasted garlic. If you follow me and you've seen some of my videos and you've seen my website, you know I love roasted garlic. And let me tell you, it is amazing in this recipe. You could use regular garlic that you mince or chop, add it in when you saute, and it'll be fine. But the roasted garlic with the bacon, oh, it's just a wonderful combination. This is 1 bulb that I squeezed out. So it's like 15 cloves of roasted garlic. I'm gonna add that in. And then our seasoning blend is simple. It's salt and pepper, 1 teaspoon of fine grind sea salt and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. Dump it right in. And that is it, my friends. So now we put the lid on, and I'm gonna use the hearty soup function because I found when I used the smooth soup function, it just got a little gummy. So I don't want that texture. I want this to be like a nice smooth but velvety soup. So we're gonna use the hearty soup function. So turn this on and hit hearty soup. 30 minutes is the cycle. And that is it. That is all we need to do. The blender will do the rest. It will blend up, it will heat up, it'll finish cooking that bacon, cook those potatoes, do its job. Then at the end, we'll add a little bit of cream, get it all smoothed out, and we'll be ready to put on our toppings. But in the meantime, I'm gonna take these potato peels and I'm gonna air crisp them. So I'm gonna rinse them off, then I'm gonna put a little bit of oil, a little bit of salt and pepper, and I'm gonna air crisp them. And we're gonna use that for a topping on our potato soup too. So I'll be real excited to see how it turns out. All right, we're all done. 30 minutes is up. I made these out of the skins of the potatoes, and let me tell you, they are amazing. I'm gonna tell you exactly how to make them because they're quick and easy to do. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and put in a 1/2 cup of heavy whipping cream. Now you could use some sort of a dairy substitute if you wanted, or you could just omit the cream. It won't look creamy like a you know, white potato soup looks like, but it'll be delicious. So you can do what you want with that. If you wanted to thicken it up some, you could use a cornstarch slurry, or you could use some xanthan gum in a little bit of oil, like an avocado oil, and that would be good to thicken this soup up. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the half of a cup of heavy whipping cream into the blender, and now I'm gonna use the extract button. I want a completely smooth soup. You don't have to do that, but this is my thinking behind it. I love chunks of potato in my potato soup. Absolutely love it. But I don't like bacon, chunks of bacon that have not been crisped up. I don't like that flavor. I don't like that texture in my mouth. So I'm gonna take this to a smooth soup since we added that bacon. If you left the bacon out, you wanted to keep it a little bit chunky, you could just skip this part and just mix in the cream, you know, with a little spoon or something, or pulse it once. But I'm gonna do the extract button because I want it nice and smooth. All right, perfect. We're all done. The other thing that extract button does, or a high-speed blend, so if you don't have the extract button, just use a high-speed blend for a few minutes, like maybe smoothie or something like that might work. I think it thickens the cream, you know, because you're agitating it all, so we're kind of whipping the cream a little bit, so it makes the soup nice and luxurious and thick. This makes 6 cups of soup, 48 ounces of soup. All right, so now we're gonna give it a taste. First thing I'm gonna do, I don't like to pour directly from the pitcher because I find that it goes all down the sides of the pitcher and I don't like to have to clean that. So I'm gonna use a ladle here. I'm just gonna go in and grab a nice spoonful, or ladleful, I should say. Oh my gosh, it's so velvety. It's so smooth. Look at that. Oh my gosh, that looks amazing. Except for where I dripped it down the side of the bowl. That I didn't want to do. All right, there we go. Now we can add our toppings. Or you could add in anything you want. If you wanted to add in like peas and corn, you could do that right now and just let it sit for a little bit so that they warm through, because peas and corn do not need to cook, you know, for long periods of time. Or you could put them in the microwave for a minute and then plop them in your soup. I've added corn and ham, like just shaved ham that I had got at the deli. I've added that and kind of made it into a dinner. It was absolutely delicious. But today I'm gonna make it a loaded potato soup. So we're gonna start off with cheese, and I've used this type of cheese each time. Oh my gosh, it's so amazing. And it's a little bit different. I've never bought it before, but I found it, I saw it at Sam's and I thought I'm gonna get this. It's called Dubliner Cheese from, it's made by Kerrygold. It's an Irish cheese, and it has the most unique flavor. So it's not exactly a cheddar, it's not exactly a Parmesan, it's sort of in between. So it's softer than a Parmesan, but harder than a cheddar. It's got a little bit of an aged Parmesan bite to it, but, oh gosh, it's so hard to explain, but it is so, so good. Let me see. I honestly cannot explain the flavor. If you see it, grab some. It's delicious. If you like a Parmesan cheese, if you don't, then you probably won't like this. It does have a little bite. So I'm gonna add that in. Of course, you could use any kind of cheddar, any kind of cheese you want. Anything you want in your soup. It's perfectly fine. Now I'm gonna add in some of these chives here, or green onions, I should say. They're not really chives. And then we're gonna add in a little bit of the crumbled bacon on top. And of course, we have to add some of these, which I am gonna tell you how to make, I promise. So we're gonna add just a few of these for crunch. Oh, I'm so excited. This is the first time I've made these before, but I burned them and they weren't very good. So this is I think my second or third time making these. So I got it right this time, but I've never tried it in the soup. So it'll be interesting to see. Now I like crunch, I like different textures. So I think this is gonna be really, really delicious. Oh my gosh. I'm scared it might be too hot though. It is perfect this way. It is perfect. I haven't used the chives or the crumbled bacon before either. And like I said, not those. Oh my gosh, this is the perfect bowl of potato soup. Make it this way. I really hope you do. All right, real quick, how I did these. So these were just the peels that I peeled off of the russet potatoes, and I gave them a rinse under cold water. If you were gonna not cook them right away, you would wanna keep them in cold water so they don't turn brown. I preheated the Ninja Foodi with the basket in on broil for 10 minutes, and then I cooked them for 10 minutes at 360 degrees using the air crisp function. So really, you could do that in the grill too, if you have the Ninja Foodi grill or a basket style air fryer. Oh, and I spritzed them with some oil. So I kind of patted them dry, spritzed them with oil, and seasoned them lightly with salt and pepper. And you can really taste the pepper come through, so if you're not a fan, skip that. But most important thing is when you're air frying them is to flip them around every 2 minutes so that they don't get stuck together and not cook, because you need to keep breaking them apart so that they get nice and crispy like this. And they are, I mean, they're just amazing, amazing. So I hope you love this recipe. Remember, on my website, I'm gonna tell you how to make this soup on the stove, in a pressure cooker, however you wanna make it. I'm gonna go over all those in case you don't have the Ninja Foodi cold and hot blender. But if you have this baby, make it in there. It's super, super easy. As always, make it yours, make it delicious, and keep it real.